If I see one more person on the internet calling softball girls baseball, I am going to punch a wall mildly hard. Because it's not just false, it's so easily disprovable that whoever came to that conclusion obviously didn't take the 30 seconds it took to Google the information and make the right decision. Are baseball and softball similar sports? Yes. Are they the same sport? No. They are fundamentally different sports in ways that have nothing to do with gender. Here's an analogy. Calling baseball and softball the same sport would be like calling American football and rugby the same sport. And it's easy to do that. Rugby and football split two teams controlling two sides of a rectangular grass field. The object of both rugby and football is to advance an oblong ball into the opponent's territory. Teams can score points by either advancing the ball into their opponent's territory or by kicking the ball through their opponent's goalpost. For someone not engaged in either sport, it'd be pretty easy to conclude that these are the same sport. But anyone involved in either sport would tell you that you are wrong. Rugby and football have different rules, different equipment, and different cultures entirely. Much like baseball and softball, which have different rules, different equipment, and different cultures entirely. And you might think that softball has different rules and equipment because it was designed for girls, and you would be wrong because that is wrong. Softball was conceived as an indoor sport in the late 19th century as a way for baseball players to keep in shape during the winter months. It was a co-ed sport from the onset, as this country's deeply sexist traditions prevented women from playing baseball but allowed them to play the slower, softer game. As baseball's popularity exploded, more men migrated exclusively to baseball while women were left to stick with softball. Softball over the 20th century developed from an indoor sport played by both men and women, to an outdoor slow-pitch variety played by men and women, to an outdoor fast-pitch game played by men and women, but at the highest levels exclusively by women. So even asking why do men play baseball and women play softball is the wrong question to ask. Because there are plenty of women that play rec league baseball, and there are plenty of men that play rec league softball. The better question is, why do we perceive softball as a girl's sport and baseball as a boy's sport? That's a tricky question to answer. In order to find some clarity, let's go back to the halcyon days of t-ball. For those of you that don't know, t-ball is this mutant alien of a sport that exists to teach 5-year-olds the rules of the game. Because baseball is such a complicated sport that it needs to be introduced in the simplest form possible in order for kids not to just give up out of frustration. And I don't know how it was in your t-ball league, but in my t-ball league, there was no boys t-ball and girls t-ball, there was just t-ball. But once everyone graduates from t-ball around 6 or 7 years old, girls often have the choice to either play Little League baseball or Little League softball. I imagine that many girls choose softball because of gender norms or because they want to play with their friends. But there are a lot of girls that choose baseball because it's more similar to the sport that they learned in t-ball. Or because it's the sport they see more often on TV. Or because it's just the sport they prefer for any number of reasons. And if your Little League isn't run by assholes, they'll let girls play. Because why not? I had girls on my team until I was like 11 years old. It was pretty normal. So why do we then separate boys and girls into different sports entirely? A lot of it is based on this sexist idea that once boys and girls reach adolescence, there exists this physical divide that makes it unfair for boys to compete with girls at all. And once girls reach a certain age, they're often told that in order to compete at the highest level with their peers, they must choose softball over baseball. Especially since that for the best players, there's a great incentive to be great at softball in order to earn acceptance or even a scholarship into high school or college. All of this makes for a very practical choice that a lot of girls have to make because there is money and status and competitive glory at stake. And I imagine a lot of girls are okay with making the transition. Softball and baseball, while not the same, are pretty similar. And America values female softball players in a way that it does not value female baseball players. I imagine most softball players are satisfied with softball and wouldn't go back if they had the choice. But I also imagine that there are some girls that just wish they could have played baseball instead. And they do. In anime. Transition! You didn't think I was gonna bring this back to anime, did you? This is a channel that analyzes baseball and Japanese cartoons, so it is worth mentioning that there are a whole lot of girls that play baseball in anime. Not softball, baseball. You should check them out. I highly recommend Taisho Baseball Girls and Princess Nine if you want some silly, serious takes on the subject. If you just want the cute girls treatment, then check out Cinderella 9 and look out for Tamayomi next year. Cross Game and Yakyukyo no Uta have some great girls playing baseball as well. And even Major and Ace of Diamond, which are both generic as hell, dip their toes into the water a bit. Yeah, there's a lot, and I could talk more about it, but we don't have time right now. The TLDR is Japan's love affair with baseball and societal gender norms have created this really interesting environment that is both friendly and hostile to women who want to play baseball. And the way anime portrays this reflects a fascinating study of gender roles within sports. Japan, after all, is a society. As are we. One where few people accept or even acknowledge that softball never was and was never meant to be the girls' analog to baseball. Softball forever, baseball forever, anime forever.